Seiichi was a lonely fatso. Unluckily, he did not have a girlfriend, and made him an easy target for bullies in his high school. Even after getting transported to another world, he couldn't shake off his loser vibes. But everything changed when he snatched a magical fruit that gave him crazy powers, making him so strong that even his rizzing levels are maxed out, and started clapping all kinds of bitches in the world. One day at school, Seiichi was getting bullied by his classmates, like always. Suddenly, a voice claiming to be God interrupted, telling everyone to pair up and stay close because they were about to be sent to another world. God promised to grant each of them special skills and the power to see others' stats. When one of Seiichi's bullies checked his stats, they saw he had the lowest numbers and was listed as barely human. The whole class mocked him, saying they'd never allow someone so useless in their group. So, while the rest of the students were transported to the new world, Seiichi was left behind, as no one wanted him on their team.
Emotional damage!
God noticed Seiichi was still there, and realizing he was the one rejected by everyone, so God gave him a unique God-level skill, and transported him to the new world as well. Alone and starving after 5 days in the wilderness, Seiichi kept convincing himself he was destined to become the main character who would level up without even trying. Desperate, he almost ate a worm crawling on the ground. But before he could, something jumped out of the bushes and knocked him over. Lying there, he spotted a strange fruit and grabbed it immediately. Using his skill, he identified it as the fruit of evolution, though there was no extra info about it. Starving and desperate, Seiichi ate the disgusting fruit, hoping it would somehow turn him into a powerful hero. Suddenly, he heard a mysterious voice urging him to activate the fruit. Confused and unsure what it meant, he waited for something to happen. But when nothing did, he got up and kept looking for food. Eventually, he encountered a group of monkeys and checked their stats, only to discover they were level 120 and much smarter than him. I think, guys, even the status checker starts roasting him. This realization insulted him. Being outclassed by monkeys was a real blow to his pride. As he watched the monkeys curiously, trying to figure out what they were up to, they eventually wandered off. Seizing the opportunity, he rushed over and grabbed the fruits they had left behind, quickly storing them in his item box. Then, he noticed some bottles among the loot. Using his appraisal skill, he found out they were high-grade recovery potions. Without a second thought, he took those too. Meanwhile, in another part of the new world, the other transported students were chatting when a group approached Kanazuki, Seiichi's senior from school. They asked about Seiichi's whereabouts. She told them he had been transported to a different location, and they began to wonder how he was holding up. Meanwhile, Seiichi found a strange mushroom, but there was no information about it. Even though he had no idea what it was, being foolish, he ate it anyway. Right after, he collapsed in pain and felt like he was about to die. Not wanting to go out on an empty stomach, he decided to eat the last fruit of evolution he had. Surprisingly, the pain went away, and he gained poison resistance along with a rank increase. Before he could enjoy his small victory, a clever monkey attacked him and f***ed him. Sorry guys, I mean injured him. Seiichi quickly drank one of the recovery potions he had stolen earlier, stood up, and tried to fight back. But since he wasn't strong enough, the monkey beat him up again. Just as the monkey was about to eat him, it smelled his horrible odor and dropped dead instantly. The monkey's body turned into items, and Seiichi gained new skills from them. One of the items was a book about clever monkeys. Seiichi was shocked that he could read it, even though it was in a language he didn't know. That's when he realized the special skill he got from God was what helped him understand the book. Suddenly, the mysterious voice told him that his evolution had started. Seiichi didn't know what was happening, but he was in terrible pain. After it ended, he got up and realized he was thinner and that his stats had increased a lot. However, Seiichi soon found out that his evolution wasn't over yet, and he'd have to go through that painful process at least 9 more times. On top of that, he was irritated because, even after taking down a level 120 clever monkey, he was still stuck at level 1. Seiichi had been training ruthlessly in the forest for 5 months, using everything he learned from the clever monkey to stay alive. During that time, he managed to defeat a level 311 Acro Wolf, gaining new abilities and even picking up a legendary water spirit dagger. While flipping through the Acro Wolf's knowledge book, right after that, he went through yet another round of evolution. Once it ended, Seiichi started wondering what would happen when he finally completed his last evolution. Just as he was lost in thought, he realized he was surrounded by a group of clever monkeys. Before he could do anything, a massive, pink, ugly gorilla with a pink flower on its head dropped down from the sky and demanded that he fight her. Despite his newfound strength, Seiichi was still scared out of his mind and nervously asked if he could back out of the fight. The gorilla, however, wouldn't take no for an answer and assured him that the other monkeys wouldn't interfere. Seiichi was terrified, especially when he saw that the gorilla was at level 700. When she threw a punch, he barely managed to dodge it and was stunned by how powerful she was. Then he noticed her giving him these weird, loving eyes and talking about how much she admired strong men. That's when it hit him, the gorilla was a female, and he was thoroughly disgusted that his charm seemed to only work on gorillas. He attempted a slash attack, but she dodged it with ease and countered with a punch that sent him flying through the forest. The gorilla, clearly impressed that her punch didn't finish him off, declared that she wanted him because he was exactly her type. Horrified, Seiichi made it clear that he wasn't interested in a gorilla, but she introduced herself as Seiria, trying to be all cute and shy and wants him in the bedroom.
What do you mean by that?
Seiichi questioned why an ugly gorilla had such a sweet name like Seiria, but all she heard was that he thought she was pretty. Grossed out, Seiichi used his adamant claw skill, which he had learned from the acro wolf, to attack her, but she easily dodged and flew into the air. She then used an air thrust move, coming down on him like a nuclear bomb. Seiichi dodged the gorilla's attack, hoping she might have knocked herself out in the process. But, to his dismay, she stood up, thrilled that he had managed to avoid her strike. Trying to fight back, Seiichi used his water spirit dagger to boost his water magic. He raised his hand and used a move called Fall Disaster, which was supposed to send a torrent of water at his opponent. Unfortunately, in his clumsy way, he misfired and ended up soaking himself instead of Seiria. Drenched and embarrassed, he tried to act cool by complimenting Seiria on her strength. However, she bluntly informed him that she had nothing to do with what just happened, making him even more humiliated that a gorilla had called out his blunder. Seiria didn't give him a chance to recover as she launched a flash fist combo, pummeling him into the ground. As Seiichi's pitiful life flashed before his eyes, he made one last desperate move and unleashed his foul body odor, now transformed into a skill called Stench Performer. But instead of defeating her like it had done to the clever monkey, Seiria shocked him by declaring her love and proposing marriage. Later, at Seiria's home, Seiichi demanded she let him go, but she insisted that they were now married and he had to stay with her. Seiichi protested, pointing out that she was a gorilla and he was human, so it was impossible for them to be a couple. Instead of arguing, Seiria offered him food, and when he hesitantly took a bite, he was stunned by how delicious it was. She then proudly revealed that she had made new clothes for him. Seiichi felt like he was losing his sanity, unable to understand why a gorilla was treating him like this. She asked if that made her a good wife, and he sarcastically replied that maybe she would be, if she married another gorilla. But Seiria was firm, saying they were meant to be together. Curious about her ability to speak, Seiichi asked how she learned to talk. Seiria explained that she had found some books in a cave and taught herself. She showed him the books, and as Seiichi read them, he gained new skills instantly. While Seiria was busy catching fish, Seiichi quietly planned his escape. But before he could get far, he ran into a giant spider and let out a terrified scream like a bitch. Seiria rushed over and punched the spider so hard that it flew off into the distance. Seiria asked Seiichi, who was still shaken up, if he was alright. He nervously replied that he was fine, but was taken aback by how much she genuinely cared for him. This made him realize how shallow he had been, judging her purely by her looks. As they ate, Seiria told Seiichi that she and the clever monkeys were going out to collect more fruits of evolution. She asked if he was familiar with them, and though he had secretly stolen the ones she had gathered earlier, he quickly lied and said he didn't know. She went on to explain that consuming 10 of the fruits could make someone incredibly powerful, but eating an 11th would be fatal. Seiria also mentioned that she had already eaten 10 herself, but the fruit she had intended for her future husband had been stolen. When she said she'd kill the person who took them, Seiichi immediately panicked and confessed, pleading for his life and admitting that he was the thief. To his surprise, she forgave him, but there was a catch. Since he had eaten the fruit, they were now destined to marry. The stunned look on his face made Seiria ask if he disliked her, and when he answered no, she instantly appeared in a wedding dress, begging him to marry her. Not long after, Seiria headed off to hunt, giving Seiichi the perfect moment to make his escape. In another part of the world, Seiichi's classmates were hard at work training. Kanazuki and her group remembered their mission, to defeat the Demon Lord, as ordered by the king when they first arrived. Meanwhile, deep in the forest, Seiichi was fleeing from Seiria, who had realized he was gone and started searching for him. Desperate to avoid her, he found a cave that radiated a sinister energy, but with Seiria hot on his heels, he dashed inside. Inside the cave, Seiichi stumbled upon a door and entered a room where he found a skeleton with glowing red eyes, sitting on a throne. The skeleton was impressed that Seiichi had made it this far and assumed he must be strong. Seiichi, feeling uneasy, checked the skeleton's stats and was relieved to see that it was only level 1. But Xenos, the skeleton who was actually the Dark Lord, told him to take a closer look. When Seiichi did, he realized Xenos had tricked him. The Dark Lord was actually level 15-0. Xenos mocked Seiichi, saying that he had hoped the first person to enter his chamber would be a powerful opponent. But instead, a weakling with the aura of an NPC had walked in. Xenos then tried to stab Seiichi, but Seiya leaped in the way and took the blow. Shocked, Seiichi called out her name for the first time, which made Seiya smile even as she lay mortally wounded. Seiichi tried to save her with recovery potions, but Seiya gently told him it was too late, she was already gone. She explained that she was still able to speak for a short while thanks to her skill, Kaiser Majesty. Seiichi, filled with regret, broke down in tears, apologizing for the way he had treated her. Seiya comforted him and asked him to smile for her one last time. While they shared this emotional moment, Xenos stood back, finding their farewell ridiculous. Fueled by anger, Seiichi snapped at him, telling Xenos that he wouldn't understand their bond. For the first time in his life, Seiichi faced someone with real courage. He attacked Xenos, but the Dark Lord effortlessly blocked his moves. Undeterred, Seiichi began telling Xenos how amazing Seiya had been. Xenos, amused by the outburst, questioned whether Seiichi actually had feelings for a gorilla. Without hesitation, Seiichi confessed that he loved Seiya. Gathering his strength, Seiichi unleashed his ocean impact skill, this time making sure to aim it directly at Xenos. But Xenos countered with a move called Magic Hole, trapping the water. He sneered at Seiichi, telling him to give up, mocking him for thinking a weakling like him could ever stand a chance against a Dark Lord. Seiichi refused to give up, insisting that he still hadn't fully embraced Seiya's love. Fueled by newfound strength from that love, he used his instant movement skill to catch Xenos off guard and managed to stab him. Surprised but accepting of his fate, Xenos admitted defeat and thanked Seiichi for helping him understand the meaning of true love. Just before fading away, Seiichi witnessed a young woman appear and embrace Xenos. As they held each other, Xenos promised her that this time, he would protect her. Seiichi watched them disappear together, but quickly remembered Seiya and rushed back to her. When he found her, Seiya had also begun to fade away. Desperate, Seiichi kissed her just before she completely vanished. A brilliant light filled the area, and when it cleared, there was a stunning, very hot-looking girl with red hair, and a pink flower where Seiya had been, and his virgin eyes can't handle her beauty. Seiichi was so shocked when she stood up and hugged him that he had a serious nosebleed. His surprise only deepened when he realized that this beautiful girl was actually Seiya. Afterward, Seiichi read Xenos' story and learned that Xenos had once been a nobleman 1,500 years ago, betrayed by both his wife and the Emperor. The only person who had remained loyal to him was his maid, Maria, who had loved him deeply. She had given her life to protect him, and after her death, Xenos became a bitter and vengeful spirit, living alone in the cave for centuries. Touched by their story, Seiichi told Seiya that he was glad he could help reunite Xenos and Maria. Not long after, Seiichi's final evolution began. Once it finished, he emerged even more handsome like Tom Cruise. Seiichi shared with Seiya that he was ready to leave the forest, and she eagerly replied that she would follow him wherever he wanted to go. Just then, a small sheep appeared, introducing himself as Miss Sheep, the dungeon administrator. He explained that he was there because they had successfully cleared the dungeon. Seiichi, feeling a bit impatient, pointed out that the sheep was arriving a bit late. Miss Sheep confessed that he had been delayed because he was enjoying watching Seiichi struggle through his final evolution. Despite the delay, Miss Sheep proceeded to hand out rewards for clearing the dungeon. Seiichi received a Fruit of Evolution cultivation kit and a travel set for 10 days. Seiya was given a beautiful dress and a helmet called the Seiya helmet. Afterward, Miss Sheep used his magic to transport them both out of the forest, allowing them to finally start their journey. Seiichi and Seiya decided to head toward the nearest town, planning to register at the Adventurers Guild and get their identification. On their way, they encountered a level 88 slime, which Seiichi defeated effortlessly, realizing just how powerful he had become. Among the items dropped by the slime were a pair of boots and some skill cards that allowed him to level up even further. However, Seiichi wasn't thrilled about leveling up again, feeling uneasy about becoming more monstrous. When he took off the helmet, it transformed into a robe. Seiya found a note that had fallen out, which turned out to be a letter from Miss Sheep. In the letter, Miss Sheep explained that the helmet had changed form because of Seiichi's recent level up, and the robe would now help conceal his true strength from others. At the entrance to the town, Seiichi told the gate guard that he and Seiya had lost their IDs. The guard then instructed them to touch the gem of truth to check for any criminal records before allowing them entry. After successfully passing the test, the guard permitted them to enter and cautioned them to be wary of the Adventurers Guild. Before they left, he introduced himself as Claude and offered his help if they ever needed anything. At the Adventurers Guild, Seiichi thought Claude might have been overdramatic with his warnings, but as soon as he opened the door, he was greeted by the sight of a blonde woman engaging in something that looked straight out of an adult movie. Shocked, he immediately slammed the door shut, questioning what he'd just witnessed. Gathering his nerves, he opened it again, only to see the same woman pouring hot candle wax on a man. As he looked around the room, more strange scenes unfolded before his eyes, making him realize the place was a chaotic mess. Quickly, he turned to Seiya and suggested they leave, feeling like they'd just walked into a wild party. Before they could sneak away, a man in nothing but Speedos blocked their path. Introducing himself as Gussel Clute, the guild master, he proudly flexed his muscles, radiating confidence. Seiichi instantly pegged him as a muscle-brained airhead. With his over-the-top enthusiasm, Gussel managed to herd them inside the building, despite their reluctance. Once inside, Gussel called over the blonde woman, who had now swapped out her provocative outfit for something more professional. She introduced herself as Ellis McLean, the guild's receptionist. Ellis explained that their guild collected valuable information from all over the world, and if Seiichi signed up, he would have access to it. Considering the benefits, Seiichi hesitated, but Seiya encouraged him, saying it would be a smart move to join. After they finished registering, 3 burly men with Viking-like Ranzerfs approached Seiichi, dragging him to the back of the guild. When they pulled off his robe, they were taken aback by how strikingly handsome he was. Just as Seiichi tried to process the situation, their leader began stripping down, much to his horror. The men then announced that this was their special welcome party for him.
Oh shit!
Seiichi, completely freaked out, had no desire to be part of whatever they had planned and made a run for his virginity, determined to keep his dignity intact. The men chased after him, trying to convince him he'd enjoy the experience. Ignoring them, Seiichi ran even faster. Impressed by his speed, the men run out of the stamina and shouted that he was just what they were looking for, but eventually gave up the chase, unable to catch him. Seiichi eventually made his way back to the guild, which visibly surprised Gussel. Ellis commented that Seiichi was the first person to make it back in one piece after an encounter with the Mohawks. She then informed Seiichi and Seiya that they would need to complete a series of tests before officially becoming members of the guild. Gussel explained that they needed someone with a B rank to oversee the tests, and introduced them to Altria, a seasoned B-rank adventurer. However, Seiichi was completely distracted by Altria's figure and didn't pay attention to anything she was saying, causing Seiya to scold him and bring him back to reality. Annoyed by the situation, Altria expressed her displeasure about taking on the role, but Gussel reassured her that if Seiichi had survived the Mohawk incident, he could handle whatever challenge she put him through. Begrudgingly, she agreed and apologized for her earlier rudeness. On their way to the first task, Altria explained that they would be starting with some basic jobs. Their first assignment was to assist at an orphanage, which Seiya eagerly volunteered to handle. As they were heading to their next task, Altria noticed a child who had hurt his leg while playing and stopped to help. While she was tending to the injury, a rope holding some wooden planks together suddenly snapped, causing the planks to fall. Before Seiichi could intervene, Altria quickly used a defensive skill to prevent the planks from hitting anyone. This left Seiichi wondering if she had anticipated the accident all along. The second task involved demolishing an old building. As Altria began explaining the plan, Seiichi, forgetting just how strong he had become, walked right into the building and, with a single push of a brick, caused the entire structure to collapse on top of him. Altria, alarmed, screamed in shock and rushed to find him, fearing the worst. As she searched through the rubble, she blamed herself, believing that she was cursed because people around her always seemed to get hurt, earning her the nickname Altria the Calamity. Just as she was on the verge of tears, Seiichi emerged from the debris, completely unharmed. Furious, Altria called him a brainless idiot and scolded him for his reckless behavior. She sternly reminded him that as an adventurer, he needed to be able to sense danger and act with caution. warning him that his carelessness could one day endanger the lives of his teammates. Seiichi then apologized and moved on to the next quest. Meanwhile, at the academy, his classmates were busy training. Zakia, their instructor, watched from a balcony alongside another knight. Zakia expressed his opposition to sending the students into battle against the Demon Lord, believing that the war had nothing to do with them. He also admitted that he was against the war with the demons entirely, vowing to do everything in his power to protect the students. Back at the village, Altria informed Seiichi that their final task was to walk a dog. Seiichi thought it would be an easy job until he saw that the dog was actually a massive wolf. The wolf immediately started chasing him around the garden while its owner and Altria watched. The owner noted that Altria seemed happier and hinted that it might be because of Seiichi, which made her blush furiously, though she quickly denied it. With the quest completed, they returned to the guild, where Gussel, as usual, pulled out their reward from his speedos as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Ellis asked if they had a place to stay, and when they said no, Altria surprised everyone by offering them a room at the inn where she was staying. Both Ellis and Gussel were taken aback since it wasn't like Altria to make such a gesture. Embarrassed, Altria was about to take back her offer, but Seiichi and Seria quickly accepted, saving her from further awkwardness. Soon after, Seiichi, Seria, and Altria headed to a nearby field for another task. Altria explained that all they had to do was gather 10 medicinal herbs. Before she could finish explaining the details, Seiichi ran off enthusiastically, leaving her mid-sentence. Altria could only smile as Seria chased after him. Seria returned with the herbs she had gathered, and Altria praised her for a job well done. However, when it was Seiichi's turn, he proudly handed over a bunch of mushrooms instead of the herbs. Altria asked where the herbs were, and Seiichi, looking puzzled, said he hadn't seen any. Shocked, Altria pointed out that there were herbs growing right by his feet, marveling at how oblivious someone could be. Seiichi hurriedly picked them but was told it still wasn't enough. Determined, he dashed back into the forest to search for more, missing the obvious once again. While wandering deeper into the forest and wondering why he kept finding rare herbs instead of the common ones he needed, Seiichi overheard some people talking. Curious as always and unable to mind his own business, he decided to approach them. When he got closer, he realized they were demons under the command of Leia, the captain of the 3rd Division of the Demon Lord's army. Seiichi initially just thought of them as more oddballs and tried to leave, but the demons stopped him, fearing that he had overheard their plan and would spoil it. The demons, desperate to stop Seiichi, summoned a hideous troll wielding a massive club. The creature swung its weapon down with full force, but Seiichi is not loser now, so he calmly blocked it using a skill he had absorbed, one that transferred the troll's strength directly to him. Seeing this, the terrified demons, now completely out of their depth, quickly fled the scene. With no other option, Seiichi collected the rare herbs he had found and made his way back to Altria and Seria. When he returned, Altria took one look at his defeated expression and, feeling a bit sorry for him, handed him the herbs she had collected herself. Seiichi gratefully accepted them, knowing he probably wouldn't have found them on his own. Meanwhile, in the demon realm of name, Leia was interrogating the squad that had fled from Seiichi. They nervously confessed that they had been in the human realm, setting up teleportation traps intended to thin out the human army before the real fight began. Leia, intrigued, asked where the traps would lead. The demons explained that the traps were designed to send the humans to the dungeon of the Black Dragon God. Leia couldn't help but feel a twinge of pity for the unfortunate humans who would end up in such a place, but she reminded her squad that they had defied orders. When she mentioned that their punishment would be 500 lashes, the demons panicked and bolted, not wanting to face their brutal punishment. While waiting for Altria to arrive for their final test, Seiichi and Seria happened to run into Claude, the knight who had greeted them at the town's gate when they first arrived. He asked them to continue looking out for Altria, even after the tests were over. Just as he finished speaking, Altria joined them and noticed they seemed familiar with Claude. He simply commented that Altria had found herself in good company and asked if this was their last test, wishing them luck as he took his leave. The final test was simple: defeat 10 slimes. Altria asked Seria what weapon she planned to use, and Seria confidently replied that her fists would be more than enough. Altria wasn't entirely convinced but decided to let her actions speak for themselves. The test began, but as Seiichi was about to strike a slime, it suddenly vanished. Altria quickly examined the area and realized that the entire field was filled with teleportation traps. Alarmed, she announced that the test would be paused and told them to head back to town. However, as she gave instructions, that bitch triggered one of the teleportation traps. Instinctively, Seiichi and Seria grabbed onto her, and all three were suddenly teleported. They found themselves deep inside a mysterious dungeon. The dragon that dwelled there immediately sensed their arrival and flew into a rage. Now lost and uncertain of where they were or how to escape, Seiichi, Seiria, and Altria had no choice but to prepare for whatever awaited them in this unknown place. Altria suggested they focus on finding an exit, then immediately scolded Seiichi and Seiria for following her without thinking things through. "Why didn't you stop to use your brains?" she snapped. Seiichi sheepishly admitted that his body had moved on instinct, and Seiria said she just wanted to help. Softened by their resolve, Altria forgave them and handed Seiichi a small, glowing guidance stone. She explained that the stone could lead them to any lost party member and would glow red if that person was in danger. Altria cautioned them to stick together and avoid getting separated. But just as she finished speaking, she stepped on another trap. A stone wall shot up from the ground, instantly dividing her from the others. Altria called out, but her voice couldn't penetrate the thick barrier. Realizing she was on her own, she began searching for an alternate route to reunite with them. Meanwhile, Seiichi, now anxious, tried to punch his way through the wall, convinced he could break it. Seiria quickly stopped him, pointing out that they still had the guidance stone. Unfortunately, neither of them knew exactly how to use it. Seiichi, in a moment of desperation, asked the stone to show them the way, and to their amazement, it floated towards the wall that had separated them from Altria. Seiria suggested they backtrack and search for a different route that might reconnect with Altria. Altria found herself in the middle of a fierce battle with a mummy. The creature flung her against the stone walls with such force that she coughed up blood. Despite the pain, Altria pushed herself to her feet and, with a single powerful strike, slashed the mummy in half. Exhausted from the fight, she collapsed onto the ground, her mind racing with worry about Seiichi and Seiria, hoping they were safe and on their way to find her. Seiichi and Seiria kept finding themselves at dead ends as they navigated the dungeon. And just as Seiichi was on the verge of losing his cool, Seiria called out to him. She had found a room with a large treasure chest in the middle. Surprisingly, Seiichi, thinking for once, decided to back away from the chest. When Seiria asked why, he simply said that it seemed too suspicious. As they were discussing it, the chest suddenly spoke, demanding to be opened. Hesitantly, they did, but at first, nothing happened. Then, out of nowhere, the chest sprouted limbs and tried to attack them. Seiichi quickly reacted, using his aqua binding skill to trap it and take it down. The chest vanished after the attack, and Seiichi leveled up once again. Shortly afterward, an item box materialized in front of them. Inside, they found a book about treasure chests. The book revealed that with the advent of item boxes, treasure chests had become obsolete, and some had developed limbs, voices, and magical abilities in an attempt to reconnect with humans. Unfortunately, this only made people fear them, leading to their being driven away as monsters. Left lonely and without purpose, these chests would wander aimlessly to places they remembered fondly. In addition to the book, they discovered a rare item known as the Ring of Misfortune. Using his appraisal skill, Seiichi learned that the ring had the unfortunate effect of multiplying a person's bad luck by 2, making it more of a curse than a treasure. Just then, Seiria called Seiichi's attention again. When he turned to look, he saw her digging into her dress. A moment later, she pulled out the guidance stone, which was now glowing a bright red. Meanwhile, Altria, utterly drained, used her axe as a crutch as she unknowingly made her way toward the chamber housing the dragon. She pushed the heavy door open, stepping inside, only for it to slam shut behind her. Almost immediately, she sensed a powerful presence and then saw a massive dragon looming before her. The dragon's eyes narrowed as it asked if she had come to be its next meal. Without hesitation, it curled up and unleashed a gust of wind magic, throwing Altria across the room. Despite the overwhelming force, Altria wasn't one to retreat. As soon as she regained her footing, she launched an attack on the dragon, refusing to back down from the fight. Meanwhile, in the demon realm, Leia had just finished administering punishment to her soldiers. She mocked them for complaining, insisting she had gone easy on them. Leia then reminded them that the Black Dragon God was far more terrifying, known as the strongest being in the Demon Lord's army. Encountering him, she said, was a sign of the worst possible luck. Back in the dungeon, Seiichi and Seiria watched in growing alarm as the guidance stone began to glow more intensely. Seiichi suddenly recalled Altria's warning about the stone changing colors to indicate danger, and panic set in as they realized Altria was in grave trouble. Just then, the stone flew out of Seiria's hand, hitting the wall with a thud. In a desperate bid to reach Altria, Seiichi mustered all his strength and punched the wall. This time, he managed to break through, even though the impact left his hands throbbing with pain. In the Black Dragon's lair, Altria was struggling against the beast, refusing to back down despite the relentless assault. She knew she had to protect Seiichi and Seiria, no matter the cost. Gathering her strength, she unleashed a powerful attack, activating her Calamity Berserker mode. But before she could close the gap, the dragon fired spikes from his tail, pinning her against the wall. "Stay down," he rumbled, his voice full of disdain. Altria, consumed by her berserker state, refused to quit. She struggled free and launched another attack, only for the dragon to impale her with his tail spikes again, throwing her to the ground. Lying there, injured and exhausted, Altria whispered an apology to Seiichi and Seiria, feeling like she had failed them. She accepted that this might be the end. As the dragon prepared to finish her off, she suddenly heard her name being called. Opening her eyes, she saw Seiichi standing between her and the dragon, using his robe as a shield to block the dragon's flames. Beside him, Seiria smiled and said, "We came to save you." Altria, surprised, asked how they had found her. Seiria explained that the guidance stone had started glowing red, signaling that Altria was in danger. Seiichi had somehow managed to break through the dungeon walls to reach her. Glancing over at the dragon, Altria asked what had happened to it. Seiichi pointed at the stunned dragon and said, "We accidentally knocked him down when we entered." The black dragon stirred, now furious beyond reason. He growled, promising to destroy them all for daring to challenge him. But Seiichi, unshaken, declared that he wouldn't lose to an oversized lizard. The dragon launched a torrent of fire at Seiichi, but he swiftly dodged it using his instant movement skill. Enraged that he was being outmaneuvered by a human, the black dragon unleashed his conquering claws and hurled a powerful fireball. Seiichi blocked the attack with his swords, though the force sent him skidding backward. Seiichi quickly used his advanced appraisal skill and realized the terrifying truth. The black dragon was far more powerful than he was, sitting at an intimidating level 5000. Despite dodging the dragon's tail using instant movement, he was caught by a spell that held him in place. The dragon wasted no time and slapped Seiichi into the wall with its massive tail. Seiichi couldn't understand why his absorb and bind resistance skills weren't working against the dragon's magic. Just then, the black dragon unleashed its ultimate skill, Hell Inferno, a massive blaze that seemed certain to burn them all to ashes. Seiichi was sure this was the end, until Seiria shouted to him, reminding him of the skill he had used when fighting her and Reed Hope. Desperate, Seiichi activated his water spirit dagger, summoning Fall Disaster, which drenched both him and the dragon in water. The dragon, now enraged beyond belief, growled that he wouldn't lose to another weak human. He shot a massive fireball at Seiichi, who dodged once again, but the dragon's spell held him in place once more. As the dragon prepared to deliver the final blow, Seiichi willed his body to move, and in that moment, he acquired the Intimidation Resistance skill. Breaking free from the spell, he surprised the dragon with a sudden counterattack, slashing the beast with precision. The dragon was stunned, unable to comprehend that he had been bested by another human. With his dying breath, he lamented his failed dreams before disappearing, leaving behind an item box. Seiria, curious about the dragon's hatred for humans, pondered what could have caused such animosity. After leveling up, Seiichi was tackled to the ground by an excited Seiria. Concerned, he asked her how Altria was doing. Seiria assured him that the recovery potions had put her to sleep and that she would be fine once she woke up. Relieved, Seiichi expressed his desire to leave the dungeon. Seiria then asked if he knew the way out, to which Seiichi suggested they check the item box for something useful. As Seiichi touched the items in the box, he gained more skills. Among the treasures, he found the Black Dragon God's Gem, which he realized would boost his stats and magical potency if he consumed it. He also discovered a Black Conqueror's long coat, an upgrade from his previous robe, which had been burned by the dragon's fire. The final item in the box was the Black Dragon's biography. From it, they learned that the dragon had once been a guardian deity for humans. However, the humans became greedy, plotting to create powerful weapons from the dragon's body. Betrayed, the Black Dragon was saved by the Demon Lord, only to be defeated by heroes summoned by humans. After the Demon Lord's death, the Black Dragon was sealed in the dungeon, where he vowed to take revenge on humanity for their betrayal. After hearing the story, Seiichi couldn't help but cry. Then Seiria mentioned that Miss Sheep hadn't shown up, even though he had successfully cleared the dungeon. Just as she was about to say more, a smoke bomb suddenly went off in his face, giving him a comical afro. A letter dropped to the ground, and Seiria picked it up, revealing it was from Miss Sheep. The letter congratulated Seiichi on completing the dungeon but explained that, despite his success, he had failed to keep the Black Dragon alive so it could live peacefully with the Demon Lord. Miss Sheep encouraged him to keep clearing more dungeons but mentioned she was going on vacation, so he should actually hold off for a while. which made him scream in frustration. As they headed back to the field, Altria was still unconscious in Seiichi's arms. When they reached the town gate, she woke up and insisted that he put her down, struggling to get free. Seiichi warned her to take it easy, reminding her that although her wounds had healed, she was still weak. Altria then apologized for dragging them into her bad luck and showed them her status, revealing that her luck was at an astonishing -2 million. She explained that she had been known as the bearer of calamity since birth, bringing misfortune to everyone around her. Seiichi asked if there was a way to lift the curse, but she said no. When they finally arrived at the guild, Altria asked Ellis what was happening. Ellis explained that they were gathering information to find their missing friends, and Altria became emotional when Ellis referred to her as a friend. Seiichi then gave a heartfelt speech, telling her how much she meant to them and that they didn't care about her bad luck curse. Overwhelmed, Altria ran off, and Seiichi quickly told Seiichi to follow her and make sure she was okay. In the demon realm, Leia broke the news to her squad that the Black Dragon God had been defeated. This revelation left everyone in disbelief since he was the most powerful being in the Demon Lord's forces. They couldn't fathom who could have managed to take him down. Meanwhile, Seiichi was busy searching for Altria, using the good stone as his guide. Along the way, he bumped into Adriana, the woman with the wolf he had once walked. He asked if she had seen Altria, but she hadn't. Adriana then questioned if Seiichi was aware of Altria's cursed luck, and he confirmed he knew. She urged him to stay close to Altria, and Seiichi assured her that Altria meant a lot to him, so he would never leave her behind. After some time, Seiichi found Altria at the location of their very first quest together. He asked her what she was doing there, but instead of answering directly, she questioned whether she really mattered to the group. Seiichi reassured her that she did and hugged her, promising he'd always be there whenever she needed him. Altria was too taken aback to respond, so she let him hold her in silence. Seiichi's thoughts started to drift, and as he grinned to himself, he couldn't help but notice how good she smelled. Then, Altria suddenly called his name, snapping him back to reality. Embarrassed, she thanked him for his support. Trying to think of a way to help her further, Seiichi remembered the ring he had found in the dungeon and thought it might counteract her terrible luck. Without hesitation, he slipped the ring onto her finger. When Altria asked what it was for, he explained that it would improve her luck. But out of nowhere, Altria pushed him away and bolted, leaving Seiichi baffled. He wondered what he had done wrong until it dawned on him that his gesture might have come across like a proposal. He started to run after her to explain, but he quickly realized that she seemed okay, so he let it go. Seiichi sat at breakfast, feeling gloomy, and Seiichi quickly noticed. She asked what was on his mind, and he confessed that Altria had been avoiding him lately. Seiichi tried to lift his spirits, saying she was confident that Altria didn't dislike him. When Seiichi asked what she wanted to do for the day, she said she'd like to help out at the orphanage. Seiichi agreed and mentioned that he would spend some time around town gathering information. After parting ways with Seiichi headed to the guild to see if Gussel and Ellis had any leads on recent events that might help him track down Kanazuki and the others. Gussel shared that he'd heard rumors about a nearby country summoning heroes from another world to combat the resurrected Demon Lord. Unfortunately, they didn't have many details and suggested that Seiichi visit the Royal Library for more information. Gussel then, with a grin, pulled out a map from his speedos and handed it to Seiichi, who struggled to keep a straight face, overwhelmed by the smell. Meanwhile, over in the Kaiser Empire, the king and his scheming advisor Weiss were discussing the heroes they had summoned. The king was frustrated that they hadn't been allowed to engage in actual battles yet, so Weiss proposed enrolling the heroes in Barbad Magic Academy. He assured the king that the heroes would easily outshine the other students, which would demonstrate their power to other nations. The king was still concerned about the plan, but Weiss confidently explained that because the heroes were young, they would be easy to control. When the king asked how they'd ensure obedience, Weiss revealed that they'd be forced to wear enslavement bracelets to make sure they followed orders without question. Seiichi had no luck finding the answers he needed at the Royal Library, so he decided to wander around town instead. During his stroll, he stumbled upon a young girl with dog ears selling paintings. When he asked about the price, she was taken aback, explaining that no one had ever tried to buy her work before. After purchasing one of her pieces, Seiichi realized he was starving and followed the aroma of food to a small, tucked-away cafe in an alley. Before stepping inside, he quietly hoped it wouldn't be filled with the same oddball types he often encountered at the guild. Inside, he found only two people, a man with blonde hair and a bartender who greeted him warmly. Seiichi wasted no time devouring the meal placed before him, eating like a man who hadn't seen food in days. The blonde man chuckled at his behavior and introduced himself as Ranzerf. After exchanging introductions, Ranzerf remarked that Seiichi's name had an Eastern ring to it. Trying to avoid revealing that he was from another world, Seiichi played along. Ranzerf then introduced the bartender as Node, the owner of the cafe. Elsewhere, Altria sat in Adriana's garden, confiding in her. Adriana encouraged her to admit her feelings for Seiichi, and with tears in her eyes, Altria confessed that she wanted to tell Seiichi how much she loved him. Meanwhile, back at the cafe, Node casually dropped some wisdom, explaining to Seiichi that when a man slips a ring onto a woman's left ring finger, it's a declaration of eternal love. He then warned Seiichi that if he tried to take it back or pretend it was a mistake, there could be harsh consequences, specifically castration. The thought made Seiichi shudder as he imagined the worst. Ranzerf, noticing his discomfort, suggested that he could just marry Altria instead. When Seiichi hesitated, Node assumed he was interested in someone else. Ranzerf then encouraged him to consider starting a harem. I think guys you have also used this advice. Before leaving, Node advised Seiichi to be clear about his intentions, even if it meant apologizing later. After Seiichi walked out, Node quietly told Ranzerf to be cautious about revealing too much. Seiichi eventually made his way to the orphanage to pick up Seiria, and was surprised to run into Altria, who had come looking for him. He wanted to explain why he had given her the ring and apologize, but the words caught in his throat. Just as he gathered the nerve to speak, Altria interrupted him with a kiss. She told him she knew the ring wasn't a sign of his love, but it didn't matter because she loved him. Seiichi found himself torn between his loyalty to his gorilla wife and his growing feelings for the shy Altria. Before he could respond, Seiria appeared and reassured him that she didn't mind sharing him. I'm sure guys she is a perfect In her culture, strong males often had multiple partners. She urged him to embrace Altria, and without hesitation, Seiichi confessed his feelings. They shared another kiss, and preparing for a After this, Seiria wrapped her arms around both of them, joyfully announcing the beginning of their new hybrid harem. Tell me in the comment guys, do you like Harem? Gussel, as usual, couldn't help being obnoxious. While Seiichi was trying to eat, Gussel got way too close, thrusting his hips near Seiichi's face. Seiichi, irritated, told him there was no need to get that personal just to talk. Ignoring the comment, Gussel advised Seiichi to buy a horse, insisting that all top-level adventurers had one. Without missing a beat, Gussel pulled out a map from his speedos once again, causing Seiichi to wince at the smell. With Seiria and Altria busy with their own activities, Seiichi went to the stables on his own to find a horse. When he got there, the old owner, Geezer, asked if Seiichi was interested in a horse for the Royal Cup. Geezer explained that the Royal Cup was a prestigious race around the city's outer walls, with lavish prizes for the winners. As he showed Seiichi the racing horses, Seiichi couldn't help but wonder why Geezer was even suggesting this. He had no plans to join the race. Geezer then showed him another option, a goofy, knockoff reindeer that looked like it would forget to breathe and pass out at any moment. The final choice was an aggressive donkey that seemed to have a deep-seated hatred for everyone around it. As Seiichi watched the donkey take a swing at Geezer, he grew curious about what it was trying to say. In that moment, Seiichi gained a skill that allowed him to understand any language. Finally able to understand her, Seiichi called the donkey a loudmouth. She noticed immediately that he could now comprehend her, and she dared him to enter her pen. When Seiichi stepped inside, she tried to kick him, but he easily dodged her attacks. She tried again, but this time, Seiichi caught her hind legs, holding them firmly until she gave up. She introduced herself as Lulun, and Seiichi decided he would take her with him. But before they could leave, Lulun couldn't resist delivering one final kick to Geezer's face. For the first time ever, Lulun was out of the stables, and as they moved through town, she was mesmerized by everything she saw, brimming with excitement over her newfound freedom. Seiichi bought some food for Lulun, and after she finished, she eagerly asked if she could have more. As they wandered through the market, Seiichi noticed someone talking to the dog-eared girl, Mei, from whom he had bought a painting earlier. Curious, he walked over to see what was happening. Mei immediately recognized him and thanked him again for purchasing her artwork. The man she had been speaking with barely acknowledged Seiichi, and instead urged Mei to enter the Kisti painting competition, which was scheduled for a month after the Royal Cup race. Mei, feeling unsure of herself, said she didn't think she was talented enough for such a prestigious competition. However, the young man argued that since Seiichi had bought her painting, it was proof that her talent was recognized. He then asked Seiichi if he had purchased any of his own paintings. When Seiichi replied that he hadn't, the man was shocked that Seiichi had never seen his artwork. Determined to change that, he proudly showed Seiichi one of his paintings. Both Seiichi and Lulun took one look at the awful painting and bluntly commented that it resembled a poorly drawn triangle. The man, humiliated, began to sulk. Seiichi then turned to Mei and asked who the man was. With a sense of pride, the young man introduced himself as Clayberger, the eldest son of Duke Berger. Despite his embarrassment, Clayberger quickly returned to convincing Mei to enter the competition. Before Mei could respond, Seiichi jumped in, telling her that he planned to participate in the Royal Cup. He suggested that if he managed to place well, she should give the painting competition a shot. Concerned for his safety, Mei pointed out that the Royal Cup was known to be dangerous and asked if he wasn't scared. Seiichi admitted that he was, but also said that if he didn't face his fears, he would never overcome them. Clay mentioned that the 5th place prize in the race was a gigantic fish, and as soon as Lulun, ever the foodie, heard this, she became ecstatic. On the day of the Royal Cup, just before the race kicked off, the announcer began revealing the prizes up for grabs. The 2nd place reward was a set of exclusive photos of the Valkyrie captain, which sent the crowd into a frenzy. And the grand prize was an entire day and night spent with the Valkyries. Tell me the comment guy what you have been done if you won the 1st prize. None of this, however, caught Lulun's attention. All she cared about was that enormous fish promised for 5th place. Mei approached Seiichi before the race, urging him to drop out, worried about the dangers ahead. But Seiichi, with a calm and wise demeanor, responded with a heartfelt speech about how taking the first step is always the hardest, and sometimes people just need a little push to get started. He assured her that he would be there to help her take that leap forward, even if it seemed daunting at first. The rules were announced, and with the blast of the starting gun, the race kicked off. Most contestants charged forward on their horses, except for those with the reindeer-like mounts that fainted in fear as soon as the gun went off. Unfortunately, Seiichi and Lulun lagged far behind because Lulun was too hungry to move quickly. Searching through his pocket dimension, Seiichi found the fruit of evolution cultivation set that Miss Sheep had given him and quickly fed it to Lulun. As the race progressed, competitors used every trick in the book to stay ahead. One contestant blew a horn, summoning a pack of grand wolves and a massive hell wolf to block the path for the others. Just as the announcer considered canceling the race due to the chaos, Lulun came speeding down the road at a wild pace. Seiichi yelled for her to slow down, but she shouted back that she couldn't control herself. She leaped over the other racers and landed in the middle of the grand wolves with such force that they were flung in every direction. The hell wolf attempted to attack her, but with her newfound strength from the fruit, she knocked it out with a single kick. Terrified by her overwhelming power, the other contestants gave up, forfeiting the race. Lulun sprinted across the finish line, and she and Seiichi were declared the winners. In the crowd, Altria and Saria beamed with pride at Seiichi's success, but Lulun wasn't as pleased. She had really wanted to finish 5th so she could win that gigantic fish. Seiichi tried to console her, but as she was lightly hitting him in frustration, she suddenly began to glow. Just then, Saria and Altria arrived, their jaws dropping as they saw Lulun transform into a human woman. Seiichi, a bit too excited by her new appearance, ended up with a nosebleed as Lulun, looking confused, hugged him. Lulun asked what was happening, but before Seiichi could respond, Altria stormed over and demanded to know what was going on. Before he could explain, she punched him in the face. Dazed, Seiichi tried to explain that the woman in front of them was actually Lulun, transformed by the fruit of evolution. Altria, however, wasn't buying it and accused him of lying. Saria tried to back him up, but Altria, still fuming, told her to stop defending the cheater. With no other option, Saria shifted into her gorilla form right in front of Altria, who was so shocked she nearly passed out. Instead, Altria managed to keep her composure and led Lulun into town, where they found a clothing shop and bought her some proper clothes. While they were standing in the store, deep in conversation, 2 Valkyries suddenly appeared and interrupted them. Without much explanation, they bound Seiichi's hands with a magical spell and ordered him to come with them. Meanwhile, in the demon realm, all the captains of the different divisions of the Demon Lord's army gathered in a conference room. As they discussed matters amongst themselves, Lutetia, the Demon Lord's daughter, entered. After thanking them for responding to her summons, she explained that she had called them together to discuss the possibility of an alliance with the Windberg Kingdom. The room erupted in shock, and Christ, the Demon Lord's aide, angrily questioned why she would want peace with the humans, who had persecuted demons for generations. He reminded her that it was the humans who had sealed her father away. Lutetia calmly replied that this was exactly why they needed to unite their people. She mentioned that the king of the Windberg kingdom had already been working toward peaceful relations with demons. Lee, another demon commander, then added that she had obtained information that the human who had defeated the Black Dragon God was from Windberg. She explained that the Black Dragon God had told her that he was bested by a human named Seiichi, and that they had fought fairly, with Seiichi emerging victorious. Christ, however, reminded Lutetia of the prophecy that warned of great calamity if demons joined forces with humans. She boldly responded that if the prophecy came true, she would offer up her own head. Christ continued to argue, but one of the captains told him to shut up and follow his master's orders, threatening to deal with him if he didn't. Other captains chimed in, agreeing with Lutetia's plan. Christ, realizing he was outnumbered, backed down but not before warning them that they would regret aligning with the humans. The captains reaffirmed their support for Lutetia, and she expressed her gratitude. Alone in the throne room, Christ fumed, worried that his plans might be foiled. But with a twisted grin, he muttered to himself that no one would be able to stop him, no matter what, and let out a maniacal laugh. Meanwhile, the Valkyries escorted Seiichi to the archer's castle, and when he asked why they had brought him there, they explained that, as the winner of the Royal Cup, he had earned the right to spend a day with them. They led him to the training grounds, where their captain, Louise, and the other Valkyries were engaged in intense training. Seiichi watched from the sidelines, impressed by Louise's incredible skill. Despite his advanced abilities and heightened senses, he was shocked to find that he couldn't track her movements. She was simply too fast. Noticing Seiichi's interest, Louise approached him with a confident smile. After introducing herself, she handed him a sword and, without any hesitation, challenged him to a mock battle, eager to see what he was capable of. Meanwhile, Seiichi's old schoolmates found themselves suddenly transported to Barbad Magic Academy. Kanazuki quickly became the center of attention when a group of students challenged her and her friends to a mock battle. She declined, but when they tried to intimidate her, she responded by slapping one of them and said, "F off."
I'm fast as fuck, boy.
Taken aback, they backed off, though they left with a warning for her to watch her back. Back at the training grounds, Louise wasted no time attacking Seiichi. He dodged her strikes with surprising ease, which caught her off guard. Expecting the battle to be simpler, she expressed her surprise, but Seiichi assured her that avoiding her attacks wasn't as easy as it seemed. Determined to push him harder, Louise vowed to use her full strength and unleashed a barrage of attacks. Seiichi managed to dodge them all, and just as she was about to land her final strike, he gained new skills that allowed him to effortlessly evade the attack and disarm her with a swift kick. The Valkyries watching were stunned. No one could believe that Seiichi had just gone toe-to-toe with their captain. Even Seiichi was shocked by what had happened, as his body had moved instinctively. Impressed, Louise asked if she could call him master and requested that he take care of her. Before Seiichi could respond, another Valkyrie approached and asked him to follow her, saying she had something important to discuss. Meanwhile, in another part of the castle, the king was getting ready for a bath, unaware that an assassin was watching him through a hidden hole in the ceiling. The Valkyrie who had pulled Seiichi aside began explaining more about Louise. She revealed that despite Louise's incredible skill, she had been born without magic or any special abilities. Seiichi was surprised, given how formidable she had been in their fight. The Valkyrie explained that Louise had a rare talent. She could perfectly mimic any swordsmanship she witnessed. Seiichi found this ability fascinating. She added that only one person had ever matched Louise's skill, the Black Paladin. Before she could continue, Louise reappeared. Louise apologized for asking to call Seiichi master without his permission and thanked him for helping her. Sensing his confusion, she explained that because of her unusual talent, people often feared her, leaving her isolated and without friends. Seiichi could relate, remembering his own lonely past, and agreed to become her master. Louise gratefully accepted his offer, though Seiichi warned her that he wasn't sure if he'd be a good teacher. She reassured him, saying she would simply follow his lead. Just as they were about to return to training, a piercing scream echoed through the halls. Rushing to investigate, they found a maid who told them the king had been attacked. Louise tried to send Seiichi home for his safety, but he insisted on staying to help. Despite their objections, Seiichi used his world vision skill to locate the attacker, discovering that the assassin was a mere child. As he tracked her movements, he checked her stats and learned that her name was Origa, and she was only 8 years old. He also saw that she was enslaved. The young assassin leaped down from the roof, and Seiichi confronted her. She threw knives at him, but he effortlessly caught them, triggering a new reflex defense skill that made his body react automatically to any incoming attacks. Before Seiichi could fully react, his newly acquired reflexes took over, and he instinctively threw the knives back at Origa. She couldn't dodge in time, and the knives pinned her robe against the wall. After struggling free, she attempted to attack him again, but Seiichi easily evaded her moves. Confused by the situation, he wondered why such a young child had been turned into an assassin. He tried to question her, but she didn't give him a chance, forcing him to eventually knock her unconscious. At that moment, Louise and the other Valkyries rushed in. They were shocked to see the young girl, and Louise asked Seiichi who she was. He explained that the girl was the one responsible for attacking the king, leaving them all stunned. Louise instructed him to hand the girl over to Lorna, a Valkyrie tasked with interrogating prisoners. Seiichi, eyeing Lorna's carefree demeanor, doubted her ability to handle the interrogation. But Louise reassured him that Lorna was skilled, having been trained by Ellis. Despite this, Seiichi couldn't shake the feeling that Lorna had likely learned everything except how to properly interrogate someone from Ellis. Seiichi then asked about the king's condition, and Louise informed him that the king had been cursed with eternal slumber by the knife Auriga had used. She explained that anyone afflicted with this curse would never wake up. Seiichi wondered if he could help and asked to be taken to the king's chambers. When Seiichi entered the room, he was surprised to recognize the king as Ran, the man he had met at the cafe. Louise introduced Seiichi to her brother, Fiorio, who was the head of the kingdom's magic division. Fiorio explained that while he had tried healing the king's wound, he had been unable to lift the curse. The Valkyries grew anxious, fearing they wouldn't be able to save the king, and they pleaded with Seiichi to try using his magic creation skill. Seiichi concentrated on creating a spell to heal the king, but his thoughts kept wandering to ridiculous ideas. Frustrated, he kept muttering to himself, "This has to be better." In his distraction, he accidentally said it aloud. The Valkyries stared at him in disbelief, realizing they had placed their trust in someone who seemed completely unprepared for the task. However, Seiichi's skill activated just in time, and a spell called Get Better appeared. Even Seiichi wasn't sure what it meant, but to everyone's relief, the spell worked. The curse was lifted, and the king awoke, surprised to see Seiichi there. Fiorio quickly explained that Seiichi had saved him by breaking the curse. The king thanked Seiichi and offered him a reward, but Seiichi humbly declined. Louise, seeing through his modesty, teased him, saying he should drop the good boy act and ask for something he truly wanted. In the Kaiser Empire, Zakia approached the king and asked about the hero's whereabouts. The king, with a smirk, revealed that he had sent his new slaves to Barbad Magic Academy, planning to use them as pawns to intimidate other nations. Over at the academy, Kanazuki and her friends were having a conversation about how unpopular the heroes were when the three troublemakers who had previously challenged them rudely interrupted. Kanazuki asked them to leave, but they refused, threatening to cause a scene. The trio sneered and reminded Kanazuki that Helio, the old instructor with the warts, had ordered them to assert their strength as heroes. Since mastering magic had come so easily for them, they saw it as their duty to show others their superiority by putting everyone else in their place. Kanazuki responded by accusing them of taking things too far, but they brushed her off, telling her to stop acting so high and mighty. Not wanting to make the situation worse, Kanazuki and her friends decided to walk away. Meanwhile, Louise and Lorna were discussing the interrogation of Auriga while soaking in the bath. Lorna admitted that she hadn't been able to get any information from the girl, who remained stubbornly silent. Their conversation then turned to Seiichi, with both women gushing over how impressive and courageous he had been when he requested that the king let him train in magic and swordsmanship alongside the Valkyries as his reward. Meanwhile, outside the castle, in a secluded bathhouse, Saria, Altria, and Lulun were enjoying a relaxing soak. Altria broke the peaceful silence by asking if they weren't a bit concerned about Seiichi, who hadn't come back yet. Half joking, she mentioned the possibility that Seiichi might return with yet another woman by his side. Saria wasn't fazed, replying that she wasn't worried. Seiichi was strong and could handle anything. Altria, on the other hand, admitted to feeling jealous and couldn't help imagining Seiichi getting cozy with the Valkyries. As they chatted, Gussel suddenly appeared out of nowhere, swooping in dramatically and scooping Seiichi up in his arms. Meanwhile, in the castle's bath, King Ran was relaxing with Seiichi and began talking about his grand dream of creating public bathhouses across the world. To him, baths symbolized equality, where everyone was the same, regardless of rank or status. Over in the Kaiser Empire, Zakia confronted the king, questioning his decision to send the heroes to the academy. He warned that it could be dangerous for them. The king, however, showed no concern, stating that the heroes were nothing more than sacrificial lambs meant to serve his purpose. Shocked by his cruelty, Zakia asked what he would do if the heroes became too powerful and turned against him. The king's advisor reassured her that it wouldn't be an issue. He had personally placed enslavement bracelets on the heroes, which would kill them if they attempted to remove them. Before Zakia could say more, an arrow suddenly shot through the window. Zakia reacted swiftly, catching the arrow before it could strike the king. Quickly ordered the advisor to protect the king while he pursued the attacker. With Zakia out of the room, Helio, the king's advisor, took the opportunity to speak privately with the king. He shared rumors that the demons and the king of Windberg were forming an alliance. Helio warned that this alliance was a direct insult to their preparations for war with the demons. The king only laughed, revealing that he had already sent the Twilight Assassin to eliminate the king of Windberg. Back in the castle, Florio woke Seiichi, who was surprised to see Saria, Altria, and Lulun nearby. Florio explained that they had come to check on him. Altria confessed that Saria had been quite worried about him and admitted she felt a bit jealous, imagining that Seiichi might be getting too close to the Valkyrie. Just then, Louise entered the room and referred to Seiichi as master. Saria and Lulun immediately started complimenting her, causing a jealous Altria to eye Seiichi with suspicion, clearly ready to teach him a lesson. Fearing for his life, Seiichi quickly explained that Louise was the captain of the Valkyries. Saria then stepped forward and introduced herself as Seiichi's wife, prompting Florio to congratulate Seiichi for landing such a babe. But before Seiichi could respond, Altria quickly introduced herself as his girlfriend, and Lulun chimed in, declaring herself his loyal servant. Surprised, Florio laughed and called Seiichi a wild man, while Louise proudly stated that she was honored to have Seiichi as her master. Meanwhile, in the interrogation room, Lorna had Auriga tied up and was preparing to start questioning her. From another room, Louise observed Lorna's methods and couldn't help but wonder if Lorna thought she was in a crime drama. Lorna tried to get Auriga to talk by taunting her with the smell of food while eating in front of her. Seiichi, unable to stand this poor excuse of an interrogation, burst into the room. Louise quickly followed and untied Auriga. Seiichi then kindly told Auriga to eat as much as she wanted. After Auriga finished her meal, Louise informed Seiichi that the collar Auriga wore was an enslavement device that forced the wearer to obey the orders of whoever placed it on them. Seiichi realized that this collar must have been the reason Auriga had attacked the king. He then asked why they couldn't just remove the collar, but Auriga responded that it wasn't possible. To prove her point, she tugged on the collar, and it immediately sent a painful shock through her body, causing Seiichi to become enraged. He wondered who could do something so cruel. At that moment, in the Kaiser Empire, the king had just received news of Auriga's failure and was furious. Helio reassured him, reminding him that Auriga was still wearing the collar. The king coldly asked if Helio planned to force her to kill herself, and Helio confirmed. Without hesitation, the king gave his immediate approval. Meanwhile, deep in a forest, Zakia was training, lost in thought. He questioned whether he was doing the right thing by wielding his sword in service of the Empire. His mind drifted back to his recent encounter with the assassin who had tried to kill the king. The man had claimed he sought revenge for a demon girl who had been killed on the king's orders. Zakia had told him that his anger wasn't reason enough to threaten the Empire by targeting the king. But the assassin had dismissed him, calling Zakia nothing more than a mindless puppet who blindly followed orders. They had clashed, and the assassin used his skill to make arrows rain down on Zakia, but Zakia deflected them all. The man, unsurprised, had told Zakia that he expected no less from the blade of the king and promised they would meet again, when Zakia was no longer just a puppet. Back in the Windberg kingdom, Seiichi learned that the collar on Auriga could only be removed by the one who had placed it, and no known magic spell could break it. Determined to help her, Seiichi decided to create a spell that would remove the collar. However, he struggled to visualize it properly. Seeing the pain in Auriga's eyes, he promised to free her, and suddenly, an image of freedom popped into his mind. His version of freedom, oddly enough, took the form of Abraham Lincoln. To his surprise, he unintentionally projected this image, and a vision of Lincoln appeared in the room, chanting free. And just like that, a new liberation spell called President Link was created, breaking the collar on Auriga. When Seiichi told Auriga that she was now free, she burst into tears. Seiichi, confused and unsure of what went wrong, just stood there. Saria gently went to Auriga and hugged her, offering comfort. Altria, meanwhile, was in disbelief that someone could be so cruel as to enslave a child. Despite the emotional moment, Lulun was busy devouring the leftover food, oblivious to the tension. Her mind focused only on filling her stomach. Auriga then opened up, telling them about the persecution of the beast folk in the Kaiser Empire. She explained that all the adults were taken to concentration camps, while the children were trained to be assassins. She had spent her life serving as a killer for the Empire and admitted that she had taken many lives since the collar was placed on her. She believed that her only worth was as a killer. Seiichi took her hand and gently told her that she could start over. He reassured her that the Kaiser Empire was in the wrong for treating the beast folk so cruelly and asked her to see him as an elder brother. Seiichi then asked if Origa could stay with them, but Origa hesitated, saying that the Kaiser Empire would come after them now that she was considered a traitor. Seiichi, however, promised to protect her, assuring her that even though he didn't look strong, he was capable. He then turned to Louise and asked if it would be alright to take Origa in. Louise smiled and told him she had already planned on asking him to take care of her. Hilo spoke to Christ through an orb, asking for an update on the Demon Lord's army. Christ informed him that although they had to adjust their plans due to Lucia's desire to ally with the Windberg Kingdom, everything was still progressing smoothly. Hilo was pleased to hear this and assured Christ that he would continue doing his part as well. Meanwhile, Seiichi was training under Fiorio's guidance, learning to control his water magic. As he struggled with the intensity of the training, he complained about how stressful it was. Fiorio reassured him, reminding him that he was doing much better than his first attempt when he almost drowned everyone around him. As Seiichi watched Seiria and Altria focus on their own tasks, Louise approached. She asked Seiichi to protect the king in her absence. When he inquired where she was headed, she explained that the Black Paladin had reported increased monster activity along the border, so she and the Valkyries were going to assist him. Seiichi agreed to her request, and Louise thanked him for his help. When the Valkyries were ready to depart, Seiichi and the others gathered to see them off, promising to handle everything at the castle while they were gone. As Seiichi reflected on how powerful and monstrous he was becoming, he suddenly heard Gussel's voice. Turning around, he also spotted Ellis. Curious, Seiichi asked what they were doing there, and they explained that they had escorted someone to see the king. Fiorio immediately recognized him as the holy mage Barnabas. When Seiichi asked who he was, Fiorio was shocked by Seiichi's ignorance and explained that Barnabas was the only mage who had mastered all forms of magic. Fiorio then excitedly geeked out over his idol, losing his composure when Barnabas revealed that he knew who Fiorio was. While they spoke, Seiichi couldn't help but wonder why someone as renowned as Barnabas had come to see the king. In the throne room, King Ran welcomed Gussel and Ellis, who hadn't left their strange behavior behind at the guild. Upon seeing Barnabas, Ran was surprised and asked why he hadn't been informed about the visit beforehand. Seiichi asked about their relationship, and Fiorio explained that Barnabas had been the king's teacher. Ran then asked Barnabas why he had come, and Barnabas revealed that it was due to issues at the Magic Academy. Since the heroes had joined, they had brought nothing but trouble. Just as Seiichi was about to ask if these heroes were his former schoolmates, a knight rushed in, reporting that a massive horde of monsters had appeared in the forest and were now invading the capital city. The knight estimated that there were around 5,000 monsters, all of them at boss level. King Ran was visibly concerned, but Barnabas tried to reassure him, saying that the mighty Valkyries would handle it. However, Ran informed him that the Valkyries had already left to defend the border. At the border, Louise was taken aback by the sheer number of monsters gathered. The Black Paladin informed her that he had already destroyed a significant portion of them before she arrived, but they kept coming in waves. Louise suggested they go for an all-out attack to prevent the monsters from recovering, and with that, she led her Valkyries into battle. As the battle raged on, Louise received troubling news. Monsters had also invaded the capital city. Meanwhile, back in the demon realm, the eccentric Helio giggled with glee as he watched the chaos unfolding in the human realm. At the capital, Artoria admitted that, despite her years as an adventurer, she had never seen so many monsters at once. However, Seiria was excited by the prospect of another battle, while Lulun, true to form, was worried that if they couldn't defend the city, she wouldn't be able to enjoy her favorite foods anymore. Seiichi was stunned that Lulun could still be thinking about food at such a crucial time, but she laughed maniacally, declaring she would fight for the sake of good food. Origa tugged on Seiichi's robe and offered her help, expressing her desire to live happily with them in the city. Seiichi reassured her but asked her not to overexert herself. In return, Origa made him promise to pet her head if she did well. Along with them, all the other bizarre guild members had shown up, each reminding Seiichi why he had once thought they were all crazy. With everyone riled up, they charged into battle against the monsters. Before Seiichi could join them, Barnabas stopped him, telling him to stay back and observe. Gussel somehow used the power of his bulging muscles to bring down hordes of monsters, while Ellis expertly tied some up and whipped them into submission. The man-baby dropped explosive bottles all over the battlefield, and the Flasher unleashed the blinding power of his junk on the monsters. Claude was perhaps the only sane one among them, but even the Mohawked warriors employed strange techniques they claimed were passed down through their clan. At that point, Seiichi had no choice but to admit that, Despite their oddities, they looked impressive. Seiichi watched as the cafe owner easily defeated a king-class beast, and King Ran revealed that he expected no less from a former assassin. Saria used her gorilla strength to crush the monsters, while Artoria cast freezing spells before swiftly slaying her enemies. Lulun unleashed her powerful kicks, which she dubbed Lulun Shot, and little Auriga sliced through the monsters with ease. Finally, Barnabas cast a powerful spell called Chaos Rain, which unleashed a torrent of fire upon the monsters. Despite their efforts, the monsters kept coming, so Barnabas followed up with Chaos Tornado, sweeping the monsters away while ensuring his allies remained unharmed. Just as Seiichi was beginning to feel optimistic about their chances, another report came in. A new horde of monsters was approaching, this time made up entirely of boss-grade creatures, far larger and more dangerous than the previous wave. As the massive creatures advanced, Barnabas identified them as S-rank monsters, and the guild members and knights, already exhausted, began struggling to hold their ground. Seiichi considered creating a wide-range attack spell that could take out the monsters in one blow, but he worried it might also harm his friends and allies. After much contemplation, he came to a decision and told Barnabas that he knew the ultimate spell to end it all. He envisioned a divine attack from above, something akin to the judgment of God. In his mind, he saw the figure of Lady Justice, and so he called the spell Judgment. But when nothing happened after he cast it, Seiichi fell to his knees in embarrassment. Just then, Lady Justice lifted her sword, and lightning rained down from the sky, striking the monsters one by one and completely annihilating them. As the lightning struck, even Gussel and Ellis embraced the pain, shouting for more. Seiichi checked the stats of the spell and discovered that it targeted only those deemed harmful, which, apparently, included some of the more eccentric members of the guild who had questionable alignments. With the monsters wiped out, the group celebrated their hard-earned victory. Hilo, who had been watching everything unfold from the demon realm, let out a stream of complaints about how things were going in the human world. But before he could finish, Lady Justice's judgment spell reached across realms and struck him, leaving him charred and looking like a well-done steak. Meanwhile, back in the human world, after defeating all the monsters, Seiichi received new skills and items from their remains. Frustrated, he complained about getting more cheat abilities he didn't need. King Ran and Barnabas praised him for his efforts and asked him to continue using his powers to protect their kingdom. After giving their thanks, they left to assess the damage from the monster invasion. As soon as Ran was gone, the girls rushed to Seiichi's side. Altria immediately questioned the magic Seiichi had used, accusing him of lying about his status and pretending to be weak all this time. Auriga then reminded Seiichi of his promise to pet her head if she did well, and, keeping his word, he did so. Not wanting to be left out, Barnabas attempted to act cute and asked Seiichi to pet his head as well. But Seiichi, thoroughly disgusted, flat out refused. Finally getting serious, Barnabas asked Seiichi if he would come to his academy and become a teacher. Seiichi was baffled and asked why Barnabas would want him for such a role. Barnabas explained that he was deeply impressed by the spell Seiichi had used to wipe out the monsters. He also pointed out that he knew Seiichi had created the spell himself and wanted to learn from him. Despite Seiichi's attempts to decline, Barnabas was persistent, insisting that Seiichi come to the academy. Seiichi explained that he had promised Louise he would protect the king and the kingdom while she was away. And besides, he didn't want to be away from his women. Barnabas, determined to convince him, suggested that Seiichi could enroll as a student while Altria could come as a teacher. Even Lulun could join as either a student or a martial arts instructor. Seiichi was still reluctant, but the girls reassured him that they didn't mind, as long as they could all stay together. With their support, Seiichi agreed to go with Barnabas once Louise returned. Since they still had time before Louise and the Valkyries would be back, Seiichi decided to take each of the girls out on a date. His first date was with Lulun at a restaurant, where the greedy donkey indulged in as much food as she could. Next, he took Altria out for a day of shopping, followed by a trip to the theater. Finally, it was Saria's turn, but she asked if Auriga could join them, as she didn't want to leave the girl alone. Seiichi agreed, and the three of them went out together. While they watched Auriga play with other children, Seiichi thanked Saria for loving someone like him, a self-proclaimed good-for-nothing loser. After professing his love, he tried to kiss her, but the children noticed Saria crying and accused Seiichi of being a bad man. Flustered, Seiichi tried to explain himself, but the kids lost interest in his explanation and instead invited him to play with them. As they played, the group noticed something strange floating in the sky, images projected above them. Among the pictures was one of Mei. At the same time, the Kisti painting competition was being held, and Seiichi, along with the girls, eagerly went to watch. The MC introduced the contestants and their paintings. Clay was the first to unveil his artwork, but the crowd seemed unimpressed. Seiichi commented that it looked like a pretty sun, while Lulun remarked that it resembled an apple, making Seiichi wonder why her thoughts always revolved around food. They were even more surprised when Clay explained that the painting represented the flames of a stick. The final contestant was Mei, who nervously revealed her painting. To Seiichi's shock, Mei had painted him as a gallant knight sitting atop a horse, although in his case, the horse was actually a donkey. Mei explained that the painting was of the man who had given her the courage to enter the competition, revealing that the title of the painting was Hero because Seiichi was her hero. Seiichi congratulated Mei when she won the competition. She excitedly told him that Clay's grandfather had offered her the chance to study in Amira, the city of art. Before leaving, Mei asked if she could paint Seiichi as her first subject after graduating from art school, and he happily agreed. Bidding him farewell, Mei left with Clay to begin her new journey. Meanwhile, the Valkyries returned to the city, and Seiichi met them at the gate to welcome them back. Louise mentioned that she had heard Seiichi would be leaving with Barnabas and expressed her desire to go with him. However, Seiichi reassured her that he understood her duty to protect the kingdom, but he encouraged her to visit them whenever possible. Back in the demon realm, Christ lay on the floor, feeling utterly defeated. His depression was interrupted by a call from one of the demon lord's apostles, Muscles. During their conversation, the demon lord himself demanded to know why they were delaying his return. Trembling with fear, Christ explained that the apostles were scattered across the world, trying to gather enough despair to sustain the demon lord. However, the demon lord was unsatisfied, insisting that they needed to offer him more despair, death, and misfortune to bring about his full resurrection. A female apostle then suggested that they target Barbad Magic Academy, which was filled with children of royalty and talent from around the world. She reasoned that causing mass destruction there would create immense despair and chaos. Hilo agreed to the plan. At the academy, Kanazuki reflected on a conversation she had had with another female student. The student had inquired about Seiichi, mentioning that he had once saved her and expressing her desire to repay him for his kindness. On the day Seiichi and the girls left the city for Barbad Magic Academy, their friends from the guild, along with King Ran and the Valkyries, gathered to bid them farewell. They expressed their gratitude for all Seiichi had done and told him they would eagerly await his return. As they set off on their journey, Barnabas struck up a conversation with Seiichi, asking if he missed the city. Seiichi replied that he loved the place and its people and that he would definitely come back one day. Barnabas then mentioned that they were almost at the academy and said he was counting on Seiichi. Before Seiichi could respond, something suddenly landed on the roof of their carriage. Looking out, Seiichi saw a man dressed like a superhero. When Seiichi asked who he was, the man introduced himself as the hero of justice, Gargan of certain victories, and told him to remember the name. However, Seiichi could only shake his head and label him as yet another oddball in the long line of eccentrics he had encountered. That's it for today's video, guys. Watch the video and tell me in the comments if you want the next part.